Sullivan. Come on in.
Good morning. Thank you for braving this weather. My feet are still thawing out because I actually parked on the other side of the building. And me first. So let me thaw out. What I want to do is maybe a little bit different than what the other folks will do, because you're going to get buried in statistics this morning. So instead of giving you sort of the highlights of how the market was and what it may be, we're going to focus on a couple of things. Who is the market? Who might the market be going forward, both this year and over the next couple of years? But while we're talking about statistics, what do you think of this one? And maybe we don't even have to worry about the market. Did you read where Warren Buffett is going to insure everybody who wants to get into the March Madness and pick the Final Four, pick all the winners in the NCAA basketball? Now, how many are going to get into that, first of all? Okay. Now, here's your odds, all right? Because if you think you want to get all those permutations, you've got to do 9.4 quadrillion picks. Seriously, quadrillion. To win $1 billion, that's his return. That's what he's betting against. And even if you took out the top two teams, or the bottom two teams, that narrows down to 128 million odds to win $1 billion. So that's your chances. I just thought I'd start with that stat. I'm still going to get in because I know I can beat those odds. That's the optimism. We have done and have completed in the last year 3 or 4 studies that I want to share, and I'm just going to give you some highlights because they're available online at MIBOR.com, and they're going to give you some insight into a number of things. One of which is who is the immigrant population and how might that affect real estate and ownership? One is about investment properties and what has happened in the last 3 years and what might that mean in the next 3 to 5 years. What are the community preferences in terms of where the citizens in each of the counties that we do business, where do they want to live and where do they actually live? And you'll see some major differences. And it also suggests that what we're building may not be what we need to build, both in terms of types of housing and types of communities. So those things will all be available. And then I'll finish a little bit on inventory, because I'm sure you probably hear about that more from the other speakers. Let's just start with the immigration population. Todd Sears, who some of you may have known, and he's done some research for us, made a presentation last week to the Real Estate Academy of Leadership, and focused. Can you get feedback here? We focused on how that might impact housing in our metropolitan area. And here's a couple statistics to think about. The immigration population is back to the levels in terms of coming into our country of 1880 to 1920. Now think about that. I mean, that's our grandparents and great-grandparents who flooded this country. 14% of the population, or it's up to 14%. And the face has changed. When we think of primarily European countries and Asian countries, maybe the Norwegian countries, etc. Today, it's Bhutan. Does anybody know where Bhutan is? Burma and Iraq are the 3 leading countries that are coming into not just the United States. This is our metropolitan area. So think about the face of the customer. In 1990, those households, there was about 12,000. That was 2% of our entire population. In 1911, so 20 years later, 41,000 households, 6% of the population, so triple as a percentage of our overall population. And when you look at home ownership rates, that varies tremendously by those that are coming from other countries. And you can get that. Let's jump to investment properties. You all have been involved in seeing investors coming, not just locally, but from out of the state and even out of the country. That number last year was over 10,000 cash purchases. Obviously, the highest percentage of that being investment properties. The biggest question now going forward, will that discontinue? And how will those turn over? Will those become homeowners or not? 31% of sales last year were cash sales. That will not likely continue, and what does that mean with investment properties? In Hamilton County alone, that was 18%. 1,100 properties this past year were cash purchases. Let's talk about what the community thinks they want in housing, and this is a real interesting one. And you can actually, if you want to do a program on this just for Hamilton County, what we've been doing is going around to the divisions and also elected officials in the counties to share, where am I living and where do I want to live? And you'd be surprised at who wants to live downtown, who wants to live in housing in the suburbs, but in mixed suburbs, not just with housing alone, versus who lives in those today. Talk about inventory for a minute. Our membership is down, if we look at, go back 10 years, 2004, which is one of the heaviest years we've had. Membership is down just under 6%. Inventory is down about 16.5% from that time period. So one of the things in terms of how you do business, there's fewer homes to sell today, and most likely, although you may hear differently from some of the others, most likely through 2014 too, in terms of the inventory. So there's fewer houses for each of you to sell. And I'll end on a note that is probably a little bit further out in the future, and this will affect you folks real quickly. You know the development that HAMCO, I think, just got approved. It may be sort of similar to Bridgewater, but more mixed use and probably various size housing. That's going to have a major impact, not just on Hamilton County, but it's probably going to bring Kokomo and Lafayette closer to this area. And what does that mean in terms of how you position yourself? Blake,